Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ace Next Gen's EDC, Entrepreneur Dinner Club. My name is Ian. I'm one of the volunteers. We have Tristan and Jimmy, also part of the board. Thank you for helping organize. Everyone get food today?
Yes, awesome.
Good? Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for coming out on a rainy day today to listen to Donna. We have an amazing talk coming up. Donna's going to tell her story and we'll take questions. And yeah, I'm going to read a little intro for her. Anything you want to say before we start, Donna?
No, you go for it.
Okay, all right. So, after you read Donna Cole's bio and you decided to come to listen to her speak tonight to share some insights with us on entrepreneurship, I'll introduce Donna as someone you can definitely relate to. She is third generation, Japanese American, born in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
Grew up, no Denver. Nobody, yeah, I thought we'd get one move, but yeah. No Denver. Grew up in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, specifically in a mission in McAllen, Texas. Also no one from McAllen, Texas. She's the only survivor in her immediate family. Her brother Walter passed at age 39 from leukemia. Brother Jerry died of congestive heart failure in May. And mom in October 2017, and dad in March 2018. She maintains friendships from her kindergarten to college days. Her daughter Tammy lives in Galapagos Islands, and Donna is excited to go back there in December to help the Charles Darwin Research and Foundation to rewild Floriana Island.
Yeah, it's gonna be fabulous.
Her strength finders, top 5 strengths are achiever, relator, arranger, ideation, and learner, which fit well with her life journey. Help me introduce Donna Cole to speak tonight.
Thank you. Well, no, I can do it. Can you hear me through this one? Yeah. I've got one of these. I like these little new things. Welcome and thank you for coming out tonight, especially in the rain. If you didn't get a book, please grab a book before they all go away. So somebody asked me, I can't remember who it was, if I would sign it, but it's not my book. So it's these guys, I call them my boys. It's 4 guys, an Indian guy, a Chinese guy, Taiwanese, a black guy, and a white guy. And they put this book together. And come on in. No, you need to register. Sorry, and you need to grab a book. But I love this book. You know, they are in 49 different countries. They're doing training at Exxon, from Shell to all these big companies to medium-sized companies. And how this came about was they almost went bankrupt. And Mohammed had to lay off, I think, over 100 employees. And you know, he was distraught over it, but you know, he was flying high. They were making lots of money. He went to U of H. He started his business when he was 20, I don't know, pick a number, 22. And he had an airplane, he had a Porsche, he was really flying high, and his employees hated him, right? And he did a memo to the employees about the refrigerator, right? And you know, you can't take it back once you type it out and send it. So anyway, so they teased him about it, but in the meantime, what happened is his key employees came to him and said, you know what, you're a jerk, right? And nobody really wants to work with you anyway. And these are the reasons why. So that's why his book is called Love as a Business Strategy. He got humble, right? He realized that it was his people who was keeping the business going. So for those of you who own your own business, can you raise your hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, good. So I think you'll get a lot out of this. And also if you work for somebody and you've worked for assholes, you know, right? Anyway, so this book tells you how to be humble. It tells you how to be compassionate and kind, and what you get back in return, right? So the blue one is their second edition of this, but they have a new one coming out, and it's called Love as an Empowerment Strategy. And I think, you know, these are the right times for this kind of book, right? So I just wanted to share it with you because I'm helping to promote them to sell this book and get it out there for nothing, so you guys will buy the second book. Right. And it's online. But so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll talk about the business, and then some tips that I have for you. Some pitfalls where I fell down, and some things where maybe you might consider either starting your own business, or if you're in business, maybe there's some tweaks and some changes you want to make. You want a chair? Yeah, come on up here.
Everybody seems scared of this space for some reason.
I know. I don't know. I won't call on you.
I guess one-on-one.
It's the most expensive seats.
Yeah, I know. I get for a row. Yeah.
And you're Tristan? Tristan, you said the name of your company was after your name, right? So when you sign, do you ever sign checks or documents, and right?
Long time ago, but yes.
Okay. So even if you had documents that you're signing, always sign with your title. Okay? And if you don't put a title, put authorized signature. Right? And the reason for that is, are you a corporation, an LLC, or a sub S, or what? LLC. Okay, so you've done that so you could protect yourself, right? For lawsuits. But the minute that you sign your name, it's the name of the company, and you don't have authorized signature or your title, you've just opened yourself up to alter ego. So you can be sued. Right? So think about that if you want to use your name in your business. And it's, in my days, it was writing checks, right? But not doing that. So I grew up in South Texas, you know that, Mission and McAllen. When I was in elementary school, I was bullied, and I hid underneath the teacher's desk at recess because I didn't want to be bullied anymore. But I really didn't want this face, right? I didn't want this body. I think I almost hated myself at that point in time. And I think about, as I grew up, and then I was in ADHD everything. I was in Girl Scouts, I was in auxiliary at the hospital, I was a candy striper, you know, I helped out with Red Cross, I was in the Latin club, I was in the art club, I was in band, and the biggest thing I wanted to do was be a twirler, right? So as you go through life and people ask you to talk and speak about your life, then you realize, oh, these aha moments of why you're like who you are, right? So part of that was because people didn't like me when I was little. So now it's like, what can I do to find out more about you? Ask questions about you. Where are you from? How can I make connections? How can I help you in your business, right? Because that not only makes me feel good, but I know I've helped somebody, right? So that's part of the opposite that happened to me, because I could have been mean and ugly, right, to other people, because that's the way they treated me. But instead, you know, I decided I wanted people to like me. And what was it that I was going to do to have people like me? And that was to network, right, and build relationships. And the only way to do that is to get to know the other person, right, and what they like to do. So I would send notes to you. I just did it today. A couple of newsletters came through, and I sent it to people saying, hey, I read this and I thought of you. Right, so do that. So starting your business. How many of you want to start your business? Can you raise your hand? 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, that's it? Okay, but maybe at the end of when I finish speaking, you'll all want to start your own business who didn't raise your hand. Because I'm going to tell you about the industries that are looking for people to have their own business. So starting your own business, you know, I always said you have to have your CPA, right? You have to have your attorney. You got to have an insurance. You got to have a banker. And the software person now is really important, IT, right? Social media. But what I used to do is at least twice a year, I would have a luncheon and I would invite them to lunch, right? To give them an update about the company and where we were and what we were doing. Because the last thing you want to do is go to your banker when you need money, right? So they need to know what you're doing and how you're doing things and what's happening, what's trending that you need to change, right? Or where you need help before you actually need help. And the other thing about that was they were able to network amongst themselves and get business with each other through their clients and their suppliers. And so that helped them too. But there's a company, the lady's name is Shanaz Hamedi. Shanaz lives in Austin, Texas. She used to have a company called HomeAway, sold it to Experian, and it became VBRO. Right? So her new company now is called Zen, Z-E-N, zenbusiness.com. So her company, you can go online, you can get registered, she'll get you an EIN number, she'll get you a lawyer, she'll get you a CPA, she'll get you a banker, and she's going to watch your company if you need software and back office support. So she's into all of that. But she's got the money to invest in your company, especially if you're a tech company, right, for growth. So it's really exciting. She's, what is she? She's Iranian, but she's a real cool lady. So the other is, if you have a product and you need inventory, warehousing, logistics. So there's another guy, you may know him, Toner Remington. Have you heard of Toner? You got to get him to speak to you as well. And get these guys to speak who wrote this book. Toner has a company called CART, CART.com. Okay, so he's your Amazon, right? To help you build your business. You know, because you may get to a point where you can't do it out of your garage anymore, right? It's time to move on. So you know my top 4 or 5 strengths now. One of them was ideation. So as a kid, I didn't realize it, but my teacher noticed it. I used to look outside the window a lot and not pay attention. So she called my mom, and she said, Mrs. Fujimoto, you know, Donna's not paying attention in class, so we're going to move her away from the window. Well, that's the last thing you want to do to me, right? I mean, you talk about a downer. That was a downer. So I know now the reason why I have ideation is because I have a ability to vision what's going to be happening. How many of you think you have it? Do you, right? That's good. You got it. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So you're listening and watching what's going on, right? Or maybe how it may affect your business. And where do you need to be? What do you need to do to be in the right place at the right time, right? You also need to know that timing is everything. You can be there first, and it's not going to work, right? You just have to wait and hang around. Or things may change, so and know when to fold them as well. But knowing your sacred cows. Let's see, do you have any sacred cows in your business? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what one of mine was. I think I know what one of yours might be. So one of mine was, because we're a distributor, so we get a lot of calls and we get a lot of messages, right? Now, email messages. But I didn't want anybody to be sent directly to a voicemail, right? I wanted somebody to pick up the phone within 4 rings, and I didn't want anybody left on hold for more than 30 seconds without somebody getting back to them, right? Because you need to be responsive. So I would guess that yours would be that you wouldn't want anybody to sit in here for a long time without somebody coming over there to say, hi, how are you? Can I get you a drink, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so know what some of your sacred cows are, and know when are they not relevant anymore, right? So mine aren't relevant anymore because voicemail really isn't used much anymore, right? Because now you have a computer answering the phone, maybe you have like GPT chat or something like that going on.
Donna, did you know all these things while you were building the business, or is it something you reflected on?
I knew what my sacred cows were because, you know, I would preach them. That's kind of how you build your culture in your organization. Yeah. But we were just talking about leadership classes. Okay. How many of you have been to any leadership classes? Name them.
I did the United Ways Project Blueprint, been sent to a lot of different leadership classes just throughout my career also.
Yeah, and we talked about Blueprint.
I just went to the Pom leadership classes.
Awesome. Are you going to San Francisco in September?
This is a few years back.
It's okay, come on back. We're celebrating 30th year anniversary. Yeah, September 4th through the 7th in San Francisco. No? Okay, so you talked about Blueprint Houston, right? So being on boards and being able to network, because it's really important because you feel like you're all alone out there, right? And you really do need some people who are in different industries than you to be able to sit with once a quarter and talk about what's going on in your business, what's going on in theirs. You may have a lawsuit going on that you want to share and get some help. Maybe they've already been through it, etc. That's been very helpful. I still get together with my CEO group, right? Even now, but the leadership piece is so important. So you have Blueprint Houston, and then you have Leadership Houston. So you guys can look those up. Once you do that, there's Center for Houston's Future, and you came to that luncheon. And then after that is the American Leadership Forum. Okay. Now, American Leadership Forum, you have to be nominated by somebody who's already been through it. But I have to tell you, what you're going to do is learn about Houston, the community, how can you work with others, how can others help you, and it's really, really a great program. The other thing that I did was some business executive programs. They're expensive, but they're well worth it, right? Because you get a chance to get away from the business. You get to work on your business instead of in the business, right? And sometimes that's what you need. So I used to come back from one of those weekly sessions up in Dartmouth, and my employees I know were going, is she freaking crazy, right? Because I came back with all of these ideas that we needed to implement for a new strategy, right? But then one year I said, well, let's take all of our managers, and we went to Stonehenge, I think, Stone Mountain in Georgia, and we took everybody through the same program. So after we stayed later, another 2 days, and built our company strategy. So I think that's one thing, is how do you get everybody on board with you, right? So that you're all rowing at the same direction. So those were great. The other is, there's other leadership programs like the Jewish American Committee. I went to Israel. I went to New York City. I walked into this room and I went, oh my God, I know half the people in this room, right? Because they're all national Asian leaders. And so we went to Israel for 14 days, and it was amazing to learn about Israel, its history, to be able to eat with the Bedouins in the desert, to go see the Saudis, to go to all of these the Ethiopians in reform centers. We went to Gaza Strip, just to understand what was really the history and what was going on. And then from there, you can watch the news and listen to them and decide what's true and what's not true, right? But there's a lot of those going around in the U.S. that you should probably take a look at and just grow yourself internally. What else can I tell you? Oh, okay, here's a good one. So at some point, they're going to ask you to write an article about your company, about you, right? Always, always tell them you want a last look. You want to be able to edit it, because you want to make sure that you're not misquoted, because that can really hurt your business, okay? And just recently I had a friend of mine, and he actually wrote about another friend of ours, new business, right? And said it was a fledgling business. Now, if you were donating money to that company, wouldn't you wonder, man, did I make a wrong decision? She's a fledgling company, right? So as a friend, I had to write back and do some damage control for her, right? So always have your friends' backs in any situation like that. That was really too bad. So that was damage control. Speaking engagements, PowerPoints. How many of you do a lot of that? Good. How many of you don't want to do any of that? And how many of you are scared to do it? If I asked you to come speak with me on Fox TV or 13, would you? Right? No. He's got a restaurant.
I just wash dishes.
No, actually, it took me a long time, but a lot of it is writing your speech, right? And now I just have kind of notes, but to be able to do your speech in front of a mirror, right? And not be afraid to do that over and over and over again till you get it right, right? And then it's just easy. I know a lot of people say, well, think about your audience with no clothes on. It's like, I can't do that, But what do I wish I knew back then? So we were at Dartmouth, and there was one lady, and she used this company called Omnia, OMNIA Group, and it's a profile software, right? So you go online, you take the survey, it takes 10 minutes. But you as the employer set up the job description. How long are they going to work? 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week. How much are they going to make? The range? Is there traveling, no travel? Who are they going to report to in your organization? Who's your best employee, right? So this is in the hiring process. So this is great, right? Because they will tell you, don't hire. They will tell you it's a marginal hire, it's a conditional hire. And I have to tell you, every time we went, they were really good on the interview, right? We're going to hire this person. And it said marginal hire or conditional. We regretted it. We shouldn't have ever hired that person, right? So then what you work on is matching talent to task, right? Because you've already invested so much money in hiring somebody and training them, you don't want to let them go, right? So what task can you put on their job description that will make them be successful, right? And then after a while, you move people around so much, you're like, okay, forget it, right? That's it. So this Omnia profile is great because it will tell you hot and cold buttons. It will tell you what questions to ask in the interview process. It will also say how well they're going to work with somebody else, right? And how they compare to your best employee. So I highly recommend them. You just do that as a hiring process when you're trying to grow your business, because it's so important that you hire the right people, right? And put them in the right spots. So my top 5 strengths, that's from Discover Yourself Now, Your Strengths. So it's Marcus Buckingham and Don Clifton. You can actually go online and buy the book, buy a new book, because if you buy an old book, that means it's used, because they have a code in there for you to go online to take the survey, and it'll shoot you back your top 5 strengths. And then there's 36, so you can look at the balance and say, these are my next 5 strengths, and then you can look at it and say, oh, these are not me at all, so push those to the bottom of the 36, so you can rank them. So now I know why I'm busy all the time, right? Because I have achiever and arranger and ideation and connection and learner in my top 5. So some people call me the ever-ready bunny, right? Because I just keep going and going and going. But now I know why, right? It's just innate in me. That's who I am. Now, Bob will say, slow down. You know, stop doing ALF, stop doing this. I'm a commissioner now on the Marine Pilots Board for the Port of Houston. And he said, why did you do that? You know? And I said, leave me alone, right? And it's taken me a long time to be able to work to live, huh? Okay. That's like eating too, you know, right? Let's see. Human effectiveness training is very important. So just for yourself, right? So there's you went through APAHA. So it was discover your, who am I? And so what's next, right? So you should really do that. Figure out who you are, what makes you tick. And then those experiences that you've had growing up that also help define who you are and why you do the things you do, okay? Trending. We talked about entrepreneurship and looking, even if you don't have your own business, but wherever you work, right? Knowing what's coming down the pike. So, electricity, right, is going to be a big thing, power companies. So we're going to need 5 times the power that we need today. So what can you do with a power company or power generation, distribution, transmission? Because Texas is the iCloud center of the USA, right? So that's why you have a lot of these big boys moving here, right? Amazon, etc. Because they want those iCloud centers. And we have cheap electricity, and more land is being bought for that purpose. So you could look at, that's a good place to be. That's also a good place to invest. So my stock in Centerpoint and Energy, my dividends have been doubled every quarter coming out. So what else? Oh, are you at the top of your web search for restaurants?
Chicken and rice.
Chicken and rice?
Yeah.
So if I typed in chicken and rice restaurants in Houston or the Heights, would you come to the top?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Why did you come to the top?
We have a lot of articles linked to us, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think because I do a lot of community work, I'm listed a lot in their articles that link to
Postings?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll bring you to the top. Let me tell you another one. If you're not in a retail, right? If you're in a commercial business like I am, so I'm in distribution, right? Another way is to set up a client log on or an employee log on. So your employees can log onto it, and then let's say you have your PTO in there, or you have your quality or your training manuals, et cetera, in there for people to look at. So every time they go in, that's a hit, right? That keeps pushing you to the top without you having to pay for it, right? Or doing a lot of marketing, right? Okay, here we go. Rapid growth areas where there's numerous job openings. Places where you can solve a problem. Accountants and auditors. They're in big need right now, right? So accounting firms, actuaries, inspectors, acute care, psychiatric nurses, bartenders, right? Baristas, also business analysts, brownfield redevelopment specialist, compliance specialist, AI security is another big area. Digital forensics. Are you a good analyst? Right? Can you take the information and turn it into something that people can understand what those numbers mean? Risk management and loss prevention. Those are all new growth areas. So if you're in that area now, you want to start your own business, think about it. Think how you can solve problems for others. I have two things to invite you to. So do any of you have film industry friends? You know anybody who's a producer, a director, a writer? Hang on a second. Key grip, production artist, sound mixer, hair and makeup artist, stunt person, writer, storyboards, editors, colorists, 3D animators, creative directors. And the reason I say that is there's the state of Texas legislature just passed SB 22. So it's $300 million every other year that they're going to provide for incentives and credits for films, for videos, for faith-based films, VA films, any kind of creative work in the state of Texas. So one of my goals is to build a multi-billion-dollar business here in Houston, okay? And the ancillary economics that goes with that is your business, right? It's almost everybody's business. I don't care if you're a seamstress, if you have a food truck, if you're a lawyer. We need entertainment lawyers to be able to pull this off. So the Houston Association of Producers is going to have our first film awards for people who do the work, right? And it's August the 20th. So it's going to be at the Improv at the Marquee at I-10 in Silver. So take a look at that. Come on out. Or if you know some people, we're looking for nominations right now. And I know there was a couple of places that they only had one person, like one costume designer, I think one makeup artist. But, you know, if you know somebody, nominate them. And htxproducers.com. is the website for the HAPI, H-A-P-I-E Awards. So that's the Houston Association Producers Industry Excellence Awards. Then the next thing, this is building a national APA museum in Washington, D.C. on the Mall. Okay, there isn't one. So we need one. And so there's an organization called the Friends of the National APA Museum. We're going to have an event November the 14th at Asia Society. Okay, so come to it. So we're going to roll out a film by Corky Lee about photographic injustice. Have you heard of it? Yeah. So we're going to screen that, and then the directors come in here. We'll have a talk back. And then the Friends of the National Museum will talk about the museum in Washington, D.C. and how we can all help to get that started and build it in Washington, D.C. There's a commission just had their first meeting, so we have 18 months to do a feasibility study and present that to Congress. At that point in time, we'll need everybody's help for grassroots, to talk to your legislators, to tell them that it's important, that they need to vote for this, right? But more importantly, I also need you to go online and look at this organization for your ethnicity. Are you being represented, right? So there's Chinese organizations, Japanese organizations, but I think there's only one Vietnamese, one Filipino, and there's maybe one South Asian organization. So take a look at it. And if you know some other national or local organizations that should be a part of the task force, it doesn't cost them anything. You just send your information in, say my organization wants to join. OCA is a member, right? I don't know about ACE, maybe. But we should all be a part of it because they need stories, right? They need to know, how did we all get here? And what was the journey? And it'll be so important because now they don't even need artifacts anymore, right? Because now we're in the tech world. So all we need is pictures, we need a video, right? And they don't have to have storage for artifacts. They don't have to maintain the integrity of them, etc. So it'll be less costly for the maintenance and upkeep. So there is one building left on the mall that we can take over. It's an art historical building. It was the first building of United States history that has been empty for 10 years. So we're going to try and get that building. And it's not that big, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be huge. I think we could do a lot with technology. And unfortunately, Asians did not get any money from Congress. So we have to raise it amongst ourselves to build this museum. And I think we could do it. You know? And that's the end of what I have to say tonight. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Donna. Not many entrepreneurs are able to scale a business to the size that you did. It almost sounds through your talk that it was very seamless. Was that the case, or?
Okay.
You know.
I have a great story for you. All right, so I told you I used to go to Amos Tuck School of Business in the summers, right? I probably went 6 or 7 times to help grow the business. And they did a case study on coal chemical, but I love doing case studies and I like to work in teams and compete, right? So one of the, I don't know what company it was on, I think it was a shoe company, and we were supposed to go national, and then were you going to go international, right? And then where were you going to source materials for your shoes? So at the end of this class, you know, I had asked the professor, so how did we do? There's 60 business owners in this room, right? That are professional services, manufacturing, distribution, you name it. We're all there. I said, now how did we do compared to your MBA students? He said, you guys did terrible. And we were shocked. What do you mean we did terrible, right? Some of them were in business for 10 years, some of them 20, some of them just started. And so we asked them why, and they said because at the beginning of the case study, you guys all missed it. There was an opportunity that you had a $12 million line of credit, and you didn't use it. All right? And our comeback was, we were never accessible to money. Nobody ever said, here's the money, right? Go grow your business. And so from our viewpoint, borrowing money was like, you use your own money, right? You'll get money from friends and family. But whoever was going to give you $12 million to go out to build your business, right? And what would you do, right? So the first thing you do is hire employees and train them for the future, right? And what you're going to do, right? In your plan. So that was interesting, right? So right after that I went, all right, I'm going to the bank, right? so then, because part of all of this when you start out, right, is cash flow, right? Because you got bills to pay, you need it coming in to be able to turn it, right? But my company's a distributorship, and we're a cash cow. I didn't know I was a cash cow, right? And so we're turning money. So, you go in there and then you think, well, that's factoring, those are loan sharks. But no, that's how people build businesses. That's how most white people build businesses. Okay? Is they use somebody else's money, and they don't care if they go bankrupt. They'll go borrow money again from somebody, right? And get it. So that's a lesson I want you guys to think about, right? Is go to the bank, go to it's accounts receivable financing. That's the nice term, not factoring, but it's factoring, all right? So the other is if you have good accounts, right? So most people only get 80-85% on an invoice. But my accounts are Toyota, Exxon, Procter & Gamble, right? So I was getting 90%. Right. Also, it's the interest rate, right? So we were paying 0.5% above prime, Wall Street prime, which was great, right? Because most people pay 1 to 2% above prime, and depending on how your accounts are and how your business is, you could even be paying more. But part of that is just invoicing. It's cash flow, right? It's if you ship today, can I invoice today or is it tomorrow? Right? But if the truck has to come back and give me the weights, then all right, I'll give you a week, 5 days to invoice, right? Right now on the way over here, I got a call that said somebody put us on hold because we weren't paying the bills. Now, you could also have people in finance who decide, well, we need to hang on to that money as long as possible because we can make interest, right? But what does that do when you're late to a customer because now you just screwed up your supplier, right, by not paying on time? Right, or not asking for more time. And then I had clients when I first started, like DuPont, just to help me get started, had me on 15 days. So I got paid in 15, but I didn't have to pay my supplier until 30, right? Also had some pipeline business. So we'd get a meter ticket of 5 million pounds of ethylene through the pipeline that I just bill on, right? So I went to the bank, and I said, look, I got this big bill coming in from Shell, but I got this money coming in from Monsanto and DuPont, right? Union Carbide. And so I need you to take the money in from these companies. I'll tell you how much to pay Shell, and I'll show you their invoice, right? And then what's left over you can put into our account. Right? So this banker did it Karen Moffitt did it for 1 month, 2 months. And she came to me and she said, I can't do this anymore. I said, what do you mean you can't do this anymore? I mean, it's easy, right? And we're floating all this money through your bank. And she said, I can't be your accountant. I can't be your bookkeeper. Because if we make a mistake, it's their problem. And it would be a big mistake. So that was the end of that. Later years, she wanted to do business with me, and I would never meet with her, right? Because she really screwed me up bad in the early days. But I had to tell you, now, today, what do they call? Lockbox accounts. So when we talk about having a vision and doing something early, my timing was way off, right? Because now, lockbox accounts are very real. But back then they weren't. So, yeah. It wasn't easy. I did buy some businesses. I had a large automotive company ask me to buy a business in Detroit because we were doing so much business in the automotive industry. So I bought a company. And I can tell you that's the hardest thing I've ever done, is to buy a company and change the culture that exists into my culture. So when the senior lab guy found out that a woman was buying the business, he quit. Right? He'd been with the company for 20 some odd years. Then we had the senior sales rep who sued me. He'd been with that company for 25 years. And he said because he's working in the chemical industry, he has COPD, he has diabetes, and it was all our fault, right? So after 3 months, I bought the company, he's suing me. We won the lawsuit at the end of the day because he was just one of those guys who had this huge ego, right? And on Friday afternoon, from noon, they quit working. They would all get their boats and go out to Mackinac Island or Goose Island, wherever, with their girlfriends, right? And booze it up, have a great time. And he told that to the judge, right? And so then my attorney said, and you were at these foundries, right, selling chemicals? He said, yes, and I was breathing in all this stuff. And so the attorney says, so if we went to all of these companies and asked for their sign-in register, your name would be there, right? Oops. No, it wouldn't be there. So we won at the end of the day, but I had to tell you, we had meetings where we would have team building exercises, right? Or risk management exercises. And I'd have the guys in the plant go, if we were out in the warehouse, we'd be making money. But no, we had to sit in here and listen to this. So it was really, really hard for me. I ended up selling the business after 5 years, right? But, that's when I said you have to know when to fold them, right? When I couldn't win. We had employees who thought that just in time was you call me and I'm going to get you the product, right? They didn't realize that just in time meant planning, right? That we knew what your inventory levels were, we knew what your orders were going to be, so everybody was just on time, right, for deliveries. So there wasn't extra money spent in inventory that didn't need to be, right? So I was mad at the plant manager, and it turns out it was customer service. Customer service loved being the shero, right? So if the customer called in and said, hey, we need this tomorrow, she would say, okay. And then she would call the plant and say, hey, can y'all make this because blah, blah, blah needs it. So the plant manager would stay overtime, so would some of the employees, and nobody would bill the customer extra money, right? So it was just hard to change their thinking because well, why are we going to charge them more? I said, because it's costing us more, right? And why am I bringing in product from a supplier, right, twice a week when we could bring it in once a week or once every 2 weeks, managing those inventories. But yeah.
I'll turn it over to the audience for questions, but kind of a follow-up. So it sounds like it wasn't seamless, there were challenges, but it sounds like from your talk, you've done a lot of personal development, a lot of going to CEO groups, leadership, going back to Dartmouth. Do you think that's what enabled you to get to where you were? Is that constant growth, the humility to know when you're wrong, who to talk to, all that?
Yeah, okay, so one other thing is asking questions. So there was a shortage of methanol, and we had a big order. It was a barge and a half of drums. So we were bringing in a barge and a half of liquid methanol and putting it in drums. So that was 14,000 drums, and it was 115 truckloads to the dock. That's a lot of truckloads. And Amoco at the time, today you'd call them BP, but it was Amoco Heritage, asked us to bid on this contract. And it was from Europe. And nobody would bid on it, right? Because the product was in short supply, nobody had it. And the only question I asked was, when was the vessel going to sail? Right? Because this is now August, they're asking for a price, and the ship wasn't going to sail until October the 11th. So I had time to go back to our suppliers and ask, will the product be available? And if it is, then I'd back out those days. So if it's a flammable product, you can't leave it on the dock more than 3 days, right? So it's real tight. And we backed out the days, and so we brought in product, let's see, the 1st of October. And we got it all done, packaged, and down to the dock. But I was competing globally for that piece of business, and everybody else said no. And I'm the only one who asked, when was the ship going to sail, and could we meet the delivery, right? And we could. So that was our biggest drum order for export ever, and it went to the Gulf of Suez. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say ask questions. It's really important. Ask questions of your customers and your suppliers. You know, what keeps them up at night? What's trending in their world? And what are their new challenges? And what is their new strategy? Yeah. So a terrible strategy for us was when they went global. We lost a ton of business, and not because we weren't a good supplier, but because we weren't global enough. Right.
Thank you.
You mentioned culture a couple of times, and obviously being the CEO or the leader, you're constantly in a growth mindset, thinking of ways to grow the organization. But how do you bring that back to the rest of the staff who might see that as a burden of more work on their plate?
Yeah, so I used to get this question, oh, you want me to do this? Well, what do you not want me to do? Oh, I want to just slap them silly, right? But, you know, and they will push back, right? Yeah. They do push back. But you have to convince them that it's the right thing to do, that it's moving us in the right direction. So even when we lost a big chunk of business because of this globalness, because Mercedes-Benz came in and bought our customer, and there was no way they were going to do business with a U.S. supplier, much less somebody who looked like me, right? They were going to bring in a German supplier and use them. And they did. And then they added a little fire and oil and gas. They said, but you can have the business one more year as you train that other company who's going to take your business. But it gave us one more year, right? So I was grateful for that. But, you know, in terms of the culture, you have to bring them on board, right? And they have to understand how important it is to be a team, right? And so if they're not going to work as a team, then you just can't have them there anymore, right? They need to go find another job. And I think I finally, as I get older, it's easier to be more forthright and just tell them what you're thinking, right? Because there's other places to go work, and there's other places that they'll may be happier, you know, but let it be their decision. And, you know, set the expectations. What do you expect, right? And it was the hardest thing for me, really. I suffered for a long time with bad employees, right? And, you know, so I also brought in executive coaches for my employees. So they got 30 minutes once a month on the phone, right? And we also brought in somebody to do 20-minute chair massages for those who would let somebody touch them. Yeah.
Anyone else?
So I have a background in chemical industry, and I know it's still misogynistic to this day. So how was it like whenever you started your business, and how did you kind of navigate that to win over some clients and their employees?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people didn't like me because of, right, being Asian and being a woman in Asian, right? So some were pretty blatant. I got one of these, like, you know, you're not going to be successful because I know all the VPs in all the chemical companies and all the oil companies, right? And you don't. And my comeback was, you're right, I don't know all of the VPs, but you're probably 40, 50, I'm 27, you know, you're going to retire, and then I will know all the VPs, right? So, you know, I think it's a matter of you got to just come back to them. I know there was one time I was in somebody's lobby, and I kept calling. It's like, excuse me, but I'm here in the lobby, and you know, I called back, and then finally he'd call me back, and he's on the phone, and he'd say, I came out there twice, and you weren't out there. I'm like, well, I'm here, right? What he was looking for was Donna Cole, a black woman, right? But, you know, you just have to work through it. You know, the other thing is, they do have some stereotypical feelings about you, right? And so I think it's up to you to overcome those, right? Whether it's shyness, not asking questions, not being forthright, and not getting your space, right? And I've had to learn that for a long time. It just doesn't come right away when you start your business or if you're in industry, right? And you may see it in meetings when they're talking, and all of a sudden somebody takes an idea and runs with it, and you're still trying to figure out, wait, is that the smartest thing to do? What about this and what about that? What are the unintended consequences, right? So many of them don't think about that. They're just taking that idea and just running with it. And they love doing that to people who are analytical, right? But you got to bring them back, right? Always, you know. I hear what you're saying, and don't say however or but, and I was thinking da-da-da-da-da, and if you did this, this might happen. You know, it's really, really important that you have a voice. So there is a book out there called, let me see if I get this right, How to Toot Your Horn Without Blowing It, right? It's an old book, but it works, right? So try that, yeah.
I'm sure to win people over, you had to tell your story many different times. What are some skills or maybe tips that you have for us to like effectively tell our story to win people over?
Yeah, you need to have them have some empathy for you, and maybe even some sympathy for you, right? So my story, when I started out telling you I grew up in South Texas and I was bullied, y'all felt that. So you could start to relate, right? Or you could relate to, I didn't want this face, right? So those are the things that you could tell your story, figure out how to tell it in a short time frame, right? Whether you're a newcomer and the challenges that you went through, etc. Because then people will look at you in a different light. And I say that because there's another exercise we did that was called Kenesoma. So who am I? And we had these pieces of paper around the room, and we had questions. And you could go up and write on them. And some of them were like, you know, who's the person that you admire the most, right? What was the funniest thing you've ever done? What's the stupidest thing you've ever done? What's, you know, if you had one day to live, what would you do, right? So people would write on them, right? And then you would bring it up. So we had this guy in accounting. Nobody liked him. You know, he was a jerk. He was from Louisiana, and what we didn't know later, he created friends from this Kenesoma, right? What was the worst thing that ever happened to you? When he was a junior in high school, he was the star quarterback, doing very well in school, and his parents were killed in a car accident. And he had to go live with his sister in another town that they didn't know him, and he was a nobody, right? So now we knew why he was a jerk, right? Because, you know, he had to show, you know, who he was. We all thought he had this great big ego, but it was a false ego, right? And then after that, people liked him, and now he was doing our crawfish boils at the company, you know? But some of those things, if you just ask people, you know, what is their story, you know? What's been your journey, you know? And then I think then you can tell your journey, right? But I think the more you do it, the better you get at it, right? And it's just easier. But that's that authentic self, right? And you have to be vulnerable. And that's what these guys did. They became very vulnerable. Yeah.
You mentioned that there's a young entrepreneur who started with a business and she invests in tech. How do you get to know her and do you actually work together?
Okay, so there's an organization called OPEN, O-P-E-N. It's an organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs Network. So I was a speaker on a panel. So Shanaz was on the panel with me, as well as Toner Remington. And so it was great just to hear their stories, but also to learn about what they're doing now using technology, right? And Toner also, he gets investment bankers, right? And she's been down that road too with VCs, venture capitalists. So both of them started in an area where they went out and sought money, right? I didn't do it that way. I bootstrapped it, right? I used my own money until, right? Until I finally realized I shouldn't be using my money. I need to be using somebody else's money. Yeah, but try them because that's a great organization to help you get started. She'll look at your business, and if she thinks it's great, you know, she'll help you with investors. Yeah.
So I got a question around the exit strategy. So we are a startup. You know, we are in the business for 5 years. We are environmental, geoscientific engineering firm, and start getting into those big names you just mentioned. And you know, not long ago, we started approached by some like PE firms or some like big names. You know, they want to, you know, say do a full acquisition or do a joint venture, JV type of thing. So I want to hear, you know, I want to pick up your smart brain. Like what would be a good exit, like a good exit strategy, or what would be your thoughts on, hey, entrepreneurship, you know, obviously you got a vision, you got a mission to do, you know, next 20 years you got to do, or you can exit and start another venture.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, I was not very good on joint ventures, okay? Because the problem with joint ventures are if you don't get it in writing, all of it, right? Whatever scenario might happen, things go awry, right? So I was in two. One of them, I spent all my money, my employees, my facilities, and this guy hardly brought anything at all. And one guy only brought the technology, okay? So I had to nix that. But, you know, we were making great strides. We were working with ASTM. We were getting our product approved. And, you know, we worked with Shell to do that, right? And some of their raw materials in this new technology. But it just didn't work, right? And it takes you 5 years, maybe 7 years, right? It took me 5 years, probably in $5 million to learn that that wasn't a good deal for me, right? And then I had another one that I wanted to exit the warehousing and distribution business, packaging, blending, right? Because it's a risky business, right? And one false move, you can lose everything. And I had one of those guys, right? You talk about somebody had a cigarette and he threw it into a trash bin that we had towels in that last contained solvent, poof, right? Like, or I'm on the golf course, right? And somebody says, they just put DEG in the EG tank. And I go, what? How does that happen? Right? And so, you know, you're constantly having to eat those mistakes or figure out how to, you know, get the most out of them. But on joint ventures, it's like a marriage and you need a prenup. You got to do that, right? Who's bringing the money? How long are you going to work together? Because if it's not going to work out in 5 years, do you still want to keep going, right? because you could still be spending more money. And who's going to bring the employees? Who's going to bring what to the table? And are you bringing all the clients? And all the suppliers and the business? And what are they bringing? You know, a lot of people, I just sold 40%, right? Did you guys know that? No. Okay, January of 2022, I sold 40% of the company to another chemical company, right? And I actually had a contract where I let them be my back office, right? So now I don't have any employees. They got all the employees, I'm leasing them. So it allows me to be more strategic and do PR marketing, right? What I really like doing, as well as the volunteer work and movies. So now I'm finding out that they're not taking care of the business like I would take care of the business, right? Like the call that I got that said, hey, you know, Ineos just put us on credit hold, right? It's like, why? You know, are you not invoicing on time? Are you not collecting on time? Etc. But a lot of JVs work. It just depends on what are they bringing to the table and what are you bringing to the table. And then how long do you want it? If it's not going to work after 5 years, then you guys just got to call it quits and figure out how to split up everything, right? My selling the 40% just gave me a little bit of breathing room. So I wasn't working in the business, right, that I could really work on the business or do some other things. Give me some money to do some other things, which I like doing because I'm a starter, but I don't like to stay long, okay? And so I don't know about you. You like to stay long or you're a starter?
I think I'm similar to you, or like a starter. I mean, I can push really hard for a few years, and I would hire like a professional operation guy and just take it long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of debating. It's hard. I know there could be a lot of factors affecting or contributing to the decision-making process, but we are just kind of debating on this.
Because think about it, when you do a joint venture, where you are now, you can call the shots, right? You do a joint venture, now you got to compromise. Or you always have to ask for permission, or you always have to tell what you're doing. Right now, you don't have to do that, right? So if you want out, sell it all. Do something, take the money and go do something that you want to do, or you want to try. And AI right now is fantastic. It's so much fun, right? And I don't even know anything about it, but I went to an AI transition workshop. Oh my God, we use 5 different softwares and we develop a brand new software, right? It's crazy.
Last question, Tristan?
Yeah, so I think you've talked a little bit about how you buy a business. So I'm, as you know, I'm an accountant. I run an accounting firm. We're looking to acquire some other accounting firms, especially from owners who are retiring. Any advice on like due diligence or what I need to watch out for in terms of buying businesses?
Yeah. So if they're in the leasing of employees business also, be careful, right? But I think the other is, where's their specialty and where's your specialty, right? Are you doing small business, medium business? Are you doing nonprofits? Are you doing government work or a combination thereof? So I would say make sure that they're bringing something different to the table, right? That you're not doing another bunch of small businesses, or maybe you're doing all restaurants. I don't know, right? And now with AI, there's so much you could do. I had lunch today with this lady, and they're in the electric utility support. So they're using AI for invoicing customers. So if you want to start like a direct energy, you would contact her and you would just hire all of us to go out and sell electricity, and they would be the ones who would be invoicing, and they would be, running it from NRG or CenterPoint, etc. I thought that was fascinating. But they have all of the right-of-way information. So they're doing leases. So they're working with oil and gas companies because they're not always paying for their lease on time, and it makes them pay for their lease on time. And they know by quadrant You know, where are the pipelines? Where are the easements, et cetera? And I thought that was so cool. So they have business in like all of these silos in these different areas, and she sees that, and she's noticed that maybe in all of these 5 different areas, they're doing business with 2 or 3 of the same company. It's just like Exxon Pipeline versus Exxon Production versus Exxon Chemical, right? But they have them all listed that way, so they don't see that it's the same company, right? And to be able to go to the customer to say, hey, we can offer all of these things to you in all of your companies, right? And expand their business, but her boss doesn't see that, you know, because he's siloed. So she's going to have to go up to talk to them to see if they're going to make change. But I would say check first to see, are their customers really paying on time, right? Or there's issues. Because sometimes what I found too is that some accountants aren't very good. They will only be bean counters, bookkeepers. But they're not really out there looking out for you with IRS and what you can do. You know, here's some options. If you did this, this is what, you know, you can tax credits or not. Or if you did get research tax credits, is it worth it for all the documentation that you have to do? So I don't know. I think you just have to really get in there and look hard at them.
I think that's where I see the opportunity with a lot of account now who are just kind of doing the bare minimum, and we just go in like, hey, here's all the things we're doing, add a little bit more value to the current customer, and then sell many current services to them.
Yeah.
Because most, like you're right, most CPA firms are like doing basic tax prep, no tax planning, no tax advisory, not looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even for this guy, right?
Sorry?
So even for you, Ian, do you get tax credits for doing research? So there's money in research, right? But it depends on what kind of research and will the IRS accept it, and what kind of documentation do you have. But some people can get millions of dollars back, right?
He's
For
my
research.
accountant.
Okay.
Did you have any mentors, and what are some of the best advice that you got from them?
Say it again.
Did you have any mentors, and what are some of the best advice you got from them?
Oh gosh. Yes, I did. Just do it, right? You want to start your own business, go do it. That was one of the best advices I had. And let other people can see all the things that you do and know, and you don't actually see that value, right? So it's good to have somebody show the mirror back on you, so you can go, oh yeah, I can do that. I do that, right? And so I can start my own business. I can be successful. Yeah. Where else did I have a mentor? Mostly they've been men. Yeah. I've had a few women mentors, one in Hawaii and one in California, who's awesome, because an executive coach, you know, you can tell them what's going on in this situation, but what I need sometimes is somebody to tell me exactly what to say, right? So I don't screw it up. And this lady is fantastic, Kay Wada. Yeah, really suggest that you get an executive coach if you don't have one, because it's somebody to bounce situations off of in your own organization, or even if you work for somebody, right? And how do you go up in an organization? I had one lady, she helped this girl, this was the National Asian Professional Association? NAP, right? So one of the ladies, she was Chinese, she worked for AIG, and this executive coach started her out, she must have been about $80,000. She worked her up through AIG and then to another company and another company. She's now making $230,000 a year. Right? Not bad. I don't know what she paid her either, so.
All right, that's all
good?
the time we have.
Great.
Let's give a round of applause to Donna. That was amazing.
Aww,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can we we get a group photo?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
get a
all
group
right.
photo.
Why don't you sit right here and then we'll take it from this
All right.
way.